Russia says thousands of reservists have answered the call to fight in Ukraine, while others have been fleeing the country or staying and protesting against Vladimir Putin's mobilization order. As Moscow bolsters its war effort, Russian-installed officials are holding so-called referendums that would lay the groundwork for Russia to annex 4 occupied regions of Ukraine. Ukrainian officials and witnesses say that residents are being coerced into taking part, often at gunpoint. At the UN General Assembly, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the 4 regions will be under Russia's full protection if they are annexed by Moscow.
As Moscow swiftly draws new recruits to bolster its struggling military campaign in Ukraine, Russians again took to the streets to denounce the mobilization order. From St. Petersburg to Siberia, they chanted "No to war" and "Putin to the trenches." Police detained more than 1,000 protesters in dozens of cities across the country. In Moscow, one protester turned up in a wheelchair holding a sign saying, "Do you want to be like me?" She wasn't arrested, but police quickly took away her sign. This video, released by Russia's defense ministry, purportedly shows newly recruited Russian reservists being issued weapons before heading off for combat training. Thousands have been called up to serve in Russia's war. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has a message for the draftees. Voluntarily surrender and you will not be mistreated. The circumstances of your surrender will remain secret, and if you don't want to return to Russia, you don't have to. He made the promise during his nightly address, switching to Russian to deliver his message.
Not accepting a draft notice is better than dying a war criminal on foreign land. Running from this criminal mobilization is better than being crippled and then answering in court for participating in this aggression on top of it. Surrendering to Ukrainian captivity is better than falling under the strikes of our weapons, entirely just strikes because Ukraine is defending itself in this war.
Vladimir Putin signed a decree toughening sentences for those who do voluntarily surrender by up to 10 years in prison. Desertion and refusal to fight carry similar penalties.
For more, we can speak to our correspondent, Emmanuel Shez, who's standing by for us in Kiev. Hello to you, Emma. So, how did Lavrov's latest statement go down in Ukraine?
Well, like any other of his statements go down, Ukraine will not change its stance. It will not be impressed also by statements coming from the Russian side. Last night, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky addressed Russians directly in Russian. He does that often when he wants to pass a clear message directly to the Russian population. He called for soldiers, conscripts joining the Russian army now to not fight against Ukraine, to surrender at the first opportunity, and he says that no matter what happens with that mobilization, Ukraine will prevail. That's also the feeling that we get when talking to the population. For them, it doesn't change much. Here on the ground, back in February, experts were not very optimistic as to how long the Ukrainian army could hold on against the Russian one. Yet we're over 7 months into that war, and they managed to resist quite well so far.
And Emma, what have you been hearing about these so-called referendums that are underway in the occupied territories in eastern Ukraine?
It's the same. It's a spirit of resistance here in Ukraine from the Ukrainian side. People living in those occupied territory report that those sham referendums are being held sometimes at gunpoint. So you have armed Russian officers or proxies coming to houses trying to force people to vote. So this will not be recognized by the international community, nor will it be recognized by Ukraine. And we'll have to keep in mind that, there's a vast amount of population in those regions who fled this so as not to live under Russian occupation.
That was DW's correspondent Emmanuel Shez in Kiev. Emmanuel, thank you so much.